She arrived at the party. She had sex with Representative Gaetz within minutes of her arrival. Later on, when she was walking out to the pool area, she observed to her right Representative Gaetz having sex with her friend, who was 17 at the time.
And on this question, she's absolutely sure.
She's absolutely certain that she observed seeing her friend and Representative Gaetz having sex against what she described as a game table of some sort.
If the House Ethics Committee report were to be made public, what do you think it would reveal?
My clients want to know that this happened and it's real. They didn't vote in the last two elections. They don't care one way or another, but they do want the public to know that they're not lying. They did not come forward willingly. They've never spoken to anyone without the force of a legal subpoena. The testimonies of her and the other 11 individuals that testified would show that this actually did happen, and the American people would know, and they could decide if that's the person they want to be the next Attorney General of the United States.
The young female witnesses against Matt Gaetz who observed him in their testimony, observed him raping young women, are not going away just because Donald Trump is busy trying to twist the arm of Republican senators to try to salvage his ridiculous, obscenely inappropriate pick of Matt Gaetz to lead the Department of Justice. I'm Michael Popok. Speaking of justice, you're on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Hit the free subscribe button. Help us continue to grow our channel, our pro-democracy channel, in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. And I'm Michael Popok at the intersection. Fast-moving story, lots of moving parts, and let me break it all down for you. Donald Trump knows that this candidacy of Gaetz is on the ropes. It is circling the drain, and he is now picking up the phone himself, pushing aside Susie Wiles, who's supposed to be the person that he chose to do the arm twisting, not him directly, in the chief of staff. But she has no experience on Capitol Hill like that. She doesn't call senators for a living. She ran a campaign at best. That's about it. And so he's serving as his own chief of staff, trying to pick up the phone like he did on Jan 6, calling all those secretaries of states and all of those speakers of the House. This is how he got in trouble the last time when, one thing that Donald Trump apparently didn't learn from his mentor, Roy Cohn, the infamous lawyer, is never make the phone calls yourself. But that's all Donald Trump is doing now. The reporting is he's trying to twist arms, extorting people to try to salvage the Gaetz nomination. Why? Because this Gaetz nomination should be yanked and pulled by Donald Trump, but he's doubling down. He wants a loyal supporter for himself to make sure that he and his cronies are not investigated and aren't brought to justice, and that the collapse of independence happens between the executive branch, the presidency, and the Department of Justice. With Gaetz in place, no more independent Department of Justice, no more independent FBI. It collapses completely into a solitary, unitary office of the presidency, just like we had with Nixon, with Hoover, and the like. This is the reason we got out of that business, is after the Nixon criminal enterprise that operated in our last presidency that was criminal before Donald Trump, we saw the value of an independent Department of Justice. That's what we've been watching all along with Merrick Garland, with Eric Holder, and others. The problem is people fault the independents. They want more weaponization. They want the president, or Joe Biden when it's the president, to take control of the Department of Justice and don't leave it to that little man behind the podium who is the head of the Department of Justice. And say what you want about it, but I think there's a lot of value in independent, non-weaponized Department of Justice. But those days are over if Matt Gaetz gets in especially. Donald Trump was never going to make the mistake he made in his first term. He went through a series of attorney generals. There were 5 at least. And he started with Jeff Sessions, who he feels screwed him by setting up a special counsel, which became Robert Mueller, to investigate all things related to Russia collusion. Didn't like him, didn't like Bill Barr, got rid of Bill Barr, had a couple of actings in there, and ended with Jeff Clark, who did so poorly. He got indicted in Arizona and in Georgia election interference cases. So Donald Trump has a weird love-hate relationship with the Department of Justice. And so he wants to make sure that Matt Gaetz, who's his lapdog, ends up doing his bidding, and effectively Donald Trump becomes his own attorney general. He's making his own phone calls. Why does anybody think he's not going to be his own attorney general with Matt Gaetz, with his hand firmly up Matt Gaetz's, backside, manipulating him? And Matt Gaetz wants the job because he knows his only experience, his only true experience with the criminal justice system, with the Department of Justice, is on the other side of it, being investigated for sex trafficking, raping young women, taking bribes, and the rest. And his reward for that, and the reward for those charges not being pursued by the Department of Justice, he gets to be the attorney general under Donald Trump. I mean, it's one thing to just troll and middle finger the American people. It's another to undermine our constitutional republic and make us a laughing stock around the world. And that's what's happening right now. Fortunately, the reason Donald Trump has to make these phone calls, it appears that Republican senators have reached behind their backs and found their spine, or some version of it. Susan Collins of Maine, who can't be trusted regularly anyway, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, John Cornyn, other senators have all come forward and said, not a serious candidate. We don't think Matt Gaetz should be confirmed as Attorney General. We don't think that confirmation hearing is going to go very well, especially when we're demanding that the House Ethics Report, in containing the testimony of those two women who the lawyer we let off the hot take with, when that comes to light, we have to assume by now that the House Ethics Committee report is a terrible indictment of a depraved Matt Gaetz, because if it absolved him, you can believe it would have already been released. In fact, I know for a fact in my own analysis that report is against Matt Gaetz and lays out the case against him, maybe for bribery, illicit drug use, and raping girls. Because the chairperson of the bipartisan ethics committee 2 days before Matt Gaetz resigned said, we're going to release the report last Friday unless Matt Gaetz resigns. And suddenly Matt Gaetz resigned. Now, I think there was a phone call between the two of them. If I could just posit for a minute, just a table, we're just spitballing here. And during that phone call, he said, Matt, you got to resign. I've seen the report. The report's drafted. It's terrible for you. You got to do what you can. And that led to Trump trying to save another sex abuser by giving him the highest law enforcement job in the world. And now it's left to the Senate, which is why Donald Trump's already chipping away at the Senate by demanding fealty to him and that they go on immediate recess for 10 days or more upon their arrival to let him slam in these outrageous cabinet picks in a recess appointment to last at least 2 years. The Senate needs to fight back. They are an institutional body, an august body, a deliberative body that will survive beyond Donald Trump. They all get 6-year terms with no term limits. Do your job. Do the confirmation hearings. Have these women, if they want to testify, subpoena them if you have to. Do the same at the House Ethics Committee. Get that report. Subpoena that if you have to. And don't allow, because you see where this is going. They are circling the wagons around Matt Gaetz. You got Elon Musk. Sometimes I think he's the co-president, and sometimes I think he's this close to being thrown out of the inner circle of Donald Trump. There's reporting that he's already getting annoyed with some of these insiders that are getting too close to him and their lust for power, like Elon Musk. But let's say Elon Musk represents a part of Donald Trump's sentiment. He's jumping up and down in social media saying, we need Matt Gaetz. He's Judge Dredd. He's our hammer of justice. He's got a steel spine and an axe to grind. Just what I want with a Department of Justice head. Yeah. But the next step in this 12-step program for the Trumps and Trumpers is to now they'll attack these witnesses. You see, I'll come back on here and do a hot take about it. They've already started to attack the woman who claims to have been raped by Pete Hegseth, the Department of Defense nominee. She entered into a non-disclosure agreement and was paid money. Nothing says I'm not guilty of a sex crime like making the victim enter into a non-disclosure agreement and paying her off. And the lawyer just to see the model here, the blueprint that's going to be used against the clients of Leopard by Trump world any moment now is going to be, in fact, it's already started, is going to be a version of what Tim Parlatore, a Trumper lawyer representing Pete Hegseth in the process, says. He just recently told Breitbart, which is she's breached her NDA. She was the aggressor, right? The rape victim was the aggressor against a guy that's, jacked and built like Hegseth, right? She raped him. Is that what they're claiming now? And if she tries any funny stuff and tries to testify at the Senate confirmation hearing, here we go, like Christine Blasey Ford, who authentically testified through a veil of tears that Matt Kavanaugh of the Supreme Court raped her, okay? And she's got a PhD. And she did testify at a Senate confirmation hearing. Oh, they try that, we're going to be dragging her into court. That is witness intimidation. That is obstruction of the process and of Congress. But why stop? The Supreme Court supports all types of obstruction and witness tampering if it's done for the person sitting in the office of the presidency. So that's what's going to happen. And I'll continue to report on it right here on the new Legal AF YouTube channel. Take that moment, hit that free subscribe button for this exclusive content you can't find anywhere else but here. And that intersection of law and politics that we live on, that thoroughfare, as you can see, is going to be the most important thoroughfare that we have in our democracy. And so until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.